Hello everyone, I'm Emily Teacher, and today we're reading Hearst Castle's Master Builder. As part of the tour of Hearst Castle, also known as San Simeon in Southern California, visitors get to see home movies. These films show many of the celebrities who were guests there during the 1930s and 1940s. In one film, a tiny bespectacled woman hiding her face behind a sheaf of papers is mistakenly identified by the narrator as William Randolph Hearst's secretary. In fact, she was Julia Morgan, the architect who designed and supervised the building of the castle, which some have described as the most ostentatious residence of the 20th century. So we're going to learn about Hearst Castle and the architect of this castle, Julia Morgan. There is an explanation for the error. Julia Morgan, despite being an extremely prolific architect with over 700 buildings to her credit, was a very reticent person. She actively avoided publicity for herself. From early in her career, she rarely gave interviews. When she retired at the age of 79, she had all her architectural drawings destroyed. She declared that the buildings themselves would be her legacy. As a result, very little was written about her for many years. So this Julia Morgan, she was an amazing architect. She built over 700 buildings in her lifetime, but she was very shy. She was reticent. She did not want fame or publicity for herself. She just wanted people to see her buildings and love them, right? So even when she had died, she even destroyed all of her drawings of her buildings so that her buildings would be all that was left of her legacy. So people didn't know a lot about her for many, many years. Julia Morgan was born into an affluent San Francisco family in 1872. At that time, it was not common for young women to attend college. Despite this fact, Morgan entered the engineering school at the University of California at Berkeley. After graduation, she became the first woman admitted as an architectural student to the prestigious École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, France. When her studies were completed, she returned to California, ready to open her own firm. First, however, she had to pass the state licensing exam. In 1904, she became the first woman to receive an architectural license to practice in that state. So she came from a very rich family in San Francisco. And even though many young women did not attend college at that time, she went to the University of California for engineering. And then later, she was admitted as an architectural student to this prestigious university in Paris. So then she came back to California. She took the licensing exam and became the first woman to have an architectural license to be an architect in the state of California. Morgan had great skill in understanding her clients' wishes and carrying them out successfully. She designed and built private homes as well as public buildings. One of her clients was Mrs. Phoebe Hearst, a wealthy widow and philanthropist. Her only child was the publishing tycoon William Randolph Hearst. When Mrs. Hearst died in 1919, her son inherited her enormous fortune. To match his great wealth, Hearst had extravagant plans. He would have a huge home built on his 275,000-acre ranch midway between San Francisco and Los Angeles. For this project, he hired Julia Morgan. So Morgan was an amazing architect. She could always carry out exactly what the person who hired her wanted. And a client was Phoebe Hearst, right? She was a wealthy widow, which means her husband had died, and she was a philanthropist. So she did a lot for other people, this Phoebe Hearst. But when she died, her son, William Randolph Hearst, famous for other reasons, he got her fortune. And he decided to do something not to help others, but he would do something for himself and build this huge home between San Francisco and Los Angeles. So he hired Julia Morgan to make this home. For the next 20 years, Morgan immersed herself in every aspect of the design and construction of the main house and 3 guest houses. Early in the project, she supervised the laying of 5 miles of road to provide access to the site. She also arranged for a dock to be built to receive building materials arriving by ship. As the buildings were completed, she brought skilled artisans from Europe to execute the wood and stone carvings that embellished many of the rooms. From the beginning, Hearst was actively involved in the building of the ranch, as he called it. At times, this must have been irksome. For example, after an elaborate fireplace was completed, it had to be dismantled and moved to a different place in the same room because Hearst was dissatisfied with its location. Morgan had no choice but to accede to Hearst's wishes when he arbitrarily changed his mind, as he frequently did. So, this was a great opportunity for Morgan to make something amazing. But Hearst, who the house was for, he called it the ranch, and he would often change things last minute for Morgan. So she had to keep building and moving, or this beautiful fireplace, she had to take it apart, dismantle it, and move it just because Hearst changed his mind and wanted it somewhere else. And a fireplace, right, is made of many different stones. So you can't just take it in one piece and move it. It even goes through the roof of the building. So they had to fully take it apart. The scope of the project provided Morgan with a unique challenge as an architect. Casa Grande, the main house, contains 115 rooms filled with art treasures collected in Europe. Its twin towers, 137 feet high, offer a fine panorama of the Pacific Ocean and the Santa Lucia Mountains. The outdoor Neptune pool, lined with green and white marble, is not only breathtakingly beautiful, but also soundly constructed on its hillside site. In addition to the buildings, Morgan directed the creation of numerous gardens and a private zoo that grew to include more than 100 species. This place was huge. There was this giant main house with 115 rooms, two guest houses that were 137 feet high each, this gorgeous, amazing pool, um, lots of gardens, and even a private zoo on the land. By the late 1930s, construction at San Simeon ceased. Morgan continued to work on other projects for Hearst as well as for other clients until 1951, when she retired. In 1958, San Simeon became one of California's state historical monuments. With over 1 million visitors a year, it is now one of the nation's most popular tourist attractions. Everyone knows that it was Hearst's millions that paid for it, but very few know the name of the person who designed and supervised its building. And that is the way Julia Morgan would have wanted it. So now this place is no longer inhabited, but it is a famous site to see in California. It's a historical monument now. And while millions of people go and visit it, Julia Morgan is not well known for having been the architect behind it, but that would have made her very happy. Thank you for reading with me today. We do have links related to each article, and if you want the link for this one here, you can find it down in the description below.